The sold sign stared at me like a slap across the face. I stood on the cracked sidewalk outside 847 Maple Street, my hands trembling around my coffee cup. The yellow paint on the shutters looked fresh. Someone had planted new roses where Mom's vegetable garden used to be. My childhood home, the place where I took my first steps, celebrated every birthday until I was 12, where Mom taught me to bake cookies on rainy afternoons, belonged to strangers now. Nobody told me. Not Dad. Not his new wife Vivian. Not my stepbrother Kyle. I'd driven 6 hours from college for spring break, expecting to sleep in my old bedroom. Instead, I got a text from Dad. "We're at the apartment on 5th Street now. See you soon." That was it. 23 years of memories, erased with one casual sentence. My throat burned. Tears threatened, but I swallowed them down. A woman appeared in the front window, the new owner probably, and I turned away. The anger hit me then, white-hot and clarifying. They sold my past without asking. Fine. I'd make sure they understood exactly what they'd done. My name is Brooke Hamilton. I'm 23 years old, from a small town called Riverside, where everyone knows everyone's business. Before we go further, please subscribe to this channel for more fascinating stories like this. You won't regret it. Now, back to that terrible day. I walked through downtown, past the library where Mom used to take me every Saturday, past the ice cream shop where Dad bought me Superman cones. Each familiar corner felt different now, tainted by betrayal. The house wasn't just walls and a roof. It was where Mom read bedtime stories, where she fought cancer for 3 years, where she died in the master bedroom with morning light streaming through lace curtains. Dad met Vivian 6 months after the funeral. She moved in within a year, bringing Kyle and her expensive furniture. I went to college shortly after, visiting during breaks. But the house stayed constant, my anchor. Now that anchor was gone. I sat on a bench near the fountain, watching families walk past. A little girl clutched her mother's hand, laughing. My chest ached. That afternoon, I'd have to face Dad and Vivian in their new apartment. I'd have to pretend everything was fine. But inside, something had shifted. I wasn't the grieving daughter anymore. I was someone they'd just taught a very important lesson. Trust no one. The apartment smelled like Vivian's perfume, something floral and expensive that made my nose itch. Dad sat in a leather recliner, looking smaller than I remembered. Vivian stood in the kitchen, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the granite counter. Kyle sprawled on the couch, scrolling through his phone. Nobody looked up when I entered. "You sold the house," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Dad shifted uncomfortably. "We needed to downsize, sweetheart. Maintaining that big place was too expensive." "Too expensive?" I repeated. "Mom's house." Vivian turned, her smile sharp. "Your mother's house?" Russell paid the mortgage for 15 years after she passed. It was his house, Brooke. His decision. The correction stung like a wasp. Kyle snickered without looking up. "Could have told you, though." I pressed, looking at Dad. "Could have asked how I felt." "You're away at college," Vivian interrupted smoothly. "This doesn't really affect you anymore." The dismissiveness in her tone made my hands curl into fists. A neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, appeared at the door with a casserole. Her eyes met mine, sharp, knowing. "Russell, Vivian," she nodded, then whispered as she passed me. "Not everything about that sale was right, dear. Ask about the buyer." She left before I could respond. I stared after her, mind racing. What did she mean? I spent the next 3 days in the town library, buried in property records. The librarian, Mr. Foster, remembered Mom and let me use the research computers without questions. The sale documents showed Dad and Vivian as sellers. The buyer was listed as Westfield Properties LLC, a company I'd never heard of. I dug deeper. Westfield Properties had 3 owners. One name made my blood freeze, Vivian's brother, Marcus. They'd sold my childhood home to family. The sale price was listed at $340,000, $50,000 below market value according to recent comparables. Something twisted in my gut. This wasn't just downsizing. This was planned. I photographed everything with my phone. Deed transfers, sale agreements, tax records. Kyle posted on social media about their smart investment strategy. Vivian commented with heart emojis. They thought I was defeated, crying into my pillow at the apartment. Instead, I was building a file. That evening, I met Mom's old friend, Patricia Morrison. She'd been Mom's lawyer before retirement. Your mother set up a trust, she said over coffee, her wrinkled hands steady around her mug.
For you.
The house was supposed to transfer to you at 25, but your father had override privileges while you were a minor. My heart hammered. Can't he just sell it? Legally?
Yes.
Ethically? She smiled grimly. That's another question. The legal oversight wasn't obvious, but it was there. According to the trust documents Patricia showed me, Dad was required to notify me in writing 30 days before any major property decisions. He hadn't. The email from spring break didn't count. It came after the sale closed. It was a small crack, but cracks could widen. I didn't rush. Instead, I started talking to people Mom knew. Old neighbors, church friends, her book club members. I asked casual questions about the sale, about Dad and Vivian's finances, about anything that seemed off. Mr. Jacobson from next door mentioned seeing moving trucks late at night 2 weeks before the sale announcement. Odd timing, he said, scratching his beard. Like they were clearing things out in a hurry. Mrs. Huang, who lived 3 houses down, remembered Vivian arguing with someone on the phone about getting it done before she comes home. Each conversation added another piece to my puzzle. I kept notes in a locked app on my phone, organizing everything chronologically. Vivian and Kyle thought I'd sulked back to college. Instead, I'd taken online classes that semester, staying in Riverside at a friend's house. I watched them from a distance, learning their patterns. Kyle bragged at bars. Vivian met with Marcus twice a week at the same cafe. Dad looked increasingly uncomfortable. That Friday, I smiled at my reflection. Patience wasn't weakness. It was strategy. Vivian threw a garden party at their new apartment complex, inviting half the town. I heard about it from multiple sources. She'd been bragging about finally being free from that money pit. I showed up uninvited, wearing Mom's pearl necklace and a sundress. Nobody recognized me at first. I'd changed my hair, wore different makeup. I stationed myself near the refreshment table, listening. The sale was brilliant, Vivian told a group of women. We got Marcus to buy it as an investment property, then we'll rent it back at a steal. Russell's name stays clean, and we pocket the difference. My hand tightened around my lemonade glass. So that was the plan. Sell low to family, rent cheap, avoid taxes on the full value. Probably hiding assets from something, debts?
Another woman asked about me.
Oh, Brooke? Vivian waved dismissively. She's young. She'll get over it. Kids need to learn that life isn't fair. Kyle added, besides, what's she gonna do? She's just a college student. Their laughter carried across the patio. I set down my glass, took one photo of Vivian with her wine, catching her mid-boast, and left quietly. Pride did make people careless. They'd handed me their motive on a silver platter, and they didn't even know I'd been there. At home, I added their words to my growing file. Could pride really be their downfall? I was about to find out. The email came Tuesday morning. Miss Hamilton, this is Thomas Burke, your family's former groundskeeper. I heard about the house. We should talk. I met him at a diner on the edge of town. Thomas was 72, with weathered hands and kind eyes. He'd maintained our property for 20 years, knew every corner of it. Your mother was good to me, he said, sliding a worn folder across the table. I kept records. Property maintenance, repairs, everything. Your father promised I'd keep the contract when she passed. 2 months after Vivian moved in, she fired me. Said they were cutting costs. I opened the folder. Inside were receipts, photographs, and detailed notes. One entry jumped out. $15,000 for roof repair, paid by Julia Hamilton Trust Fund, not family account. Another, furnace replacement, $8,000, withdrawn from Julia's estate account. They were using Mom's money for house repairs? I asked, my voice tight. Thomas nodded. Your mother left funds specifically for maintaining the house until you turned 25. Vivian and Russell dipped into that account repeatedly, then sold the house before you could inherit it properly. My hands shook. This wasn't just betrayal.
It was theft.
Why are you telling me this? Because your mother trusted me to look after things, Thomas said simply. And because what they did was wrong. That house was your legacy. I left with the folder, mind spinning.
The plan could accelerate now.
Justice was coming. I filed a preliminary challenge through Patricia Morrison's old law firm, questioning the sale's validity based on trust violation. It was subtle, just a formal inquiry requesting documentation. Within days, Vivian struck back. She called a family meeting with Dad's siblings, painting me as a bitter, jealous young woman who couldn't accept change. Brooke's having trouble adjusting to adulthood, she told Aunt Melissa and Uncle Frank, her voice dripping with false concern. She's trying to cause problems over a simple business decision. We're worried about her mental health. Aunt Melissa called me that night. Brooke, honey, your father says you're struggling. Is this about the house? You need to let it go. I tried explaining, but Vivian had planted seeds everywhere. Social media posts appeared, vague mentions of ungrateful children and family drama. People I'd known my whole life started looking at me differently. At the grocery store, Mrs. Henderson avoided eye contact. At church, conversations stopped when I approached. The public perception was shifting, and not in my favor. I retreated, reassessing. Direct confrontation wasn't working. Vivian was better at playing the victim than I'd anticipated. That night, I stared at my ceiling, thinking, how could I turn this misperception to my advantage? Then it hit me. Let them think they'd won. Let them get comfortable. Comfortable people made mistakes. I posted on social media, taking time to focus on school and personal growth. Family is complicated. Wishing everyone peace. Vivian liked the post within minutes. I hired Malcolm Turner, a property attorney from the city with a reputation for thoroughness. He was expensive. I used the savings from my campus job and a small loan. Malcolm reviewed everything, Thomas's records, the trust documents, the sale agreements, the timeline discrepancies. This is messy, he said, spreading papers across his desk. But messy can work in our favor. They've violated trust terms, used estate funds improperly, and potentially committed fraud by undervaluing the sale to a family member. We built the case methodically. Malcolm filed for an audit of all transactions related to Mom's estate and the house. He requested full disclosure of the sale terms to Marcus. He documented the notification failure. Each legal motion was precise, professional, and impossible to dismiss as drama. Vivian grew suspicious. I could tell from Kyle's social media. He posted complaints about lawyers sticking their noses in family business. Dad called me twice, but I didn't answer. Let them wonder. Meanwhile, Malcolm discovered something else. Marcus had financed the house purchase through a loan that listed Dad and Vivian as co-signers. They weren't just selling, they were maintaining financial control while appearing to divest. It's a shell game, Malcolm explained. They're hiding assets, probably from creditors or tax authorities. The moment we expose the structure, the whole thing falls apart. That Friday, Malcolm filed the first official legal challenge. By Monday, Vivian would receive notice. The fortress was built. Now we'd see if their walls could withstand the siege. Mrs. Patterson knocked on my door Wednesday evening, her face grave. I have something you need to see. She handed me a manila envelope. Inside were copies of emails between Vivian and Marcus, discussing the house sale months before Mom's death anniversary. I want that property before Brooke turns 25, Vivian had written. Julia set up that trust to spite me, but we can work around it. Marcus replied, buy it through my LLC, undervalue it by 50 grand, we'll split the difference. Russell won't question anything. The emails continued, detailing their plans step by step. Mrs. Patterson had gotten them from her son, who worked in Marcus's office and felt guilty. He should have come forward sooner, she said, but better late than never. The final email made my stomach turn. Make sure the girl doesn't find out until it's done. By then, she'll be too broke to fight it. I photocopied everything, sent copies to Malcolm, and locked the originals in a safety deposit box. When I showed Malcolm, his usually calm expression cracked into a smile. This is fraud. Clear, documented, premeditated fraud. Your stepmother just handed us the case. Vivian's confidence began to falter. She posted less on social media. Kyle mentioned their lawyer wanted to settle quietly. Too late for quiet. The trap was closing, iron teeth ready to snap shut. Would Vivian notice before it was too late? Did I want her to?
No.
I wanted her to see it coming and realize she couldn't stop it. I didn't leak information directly. I didn't have to. I simply mentioned to a few key people, the church secretary, the librarian, the coffee shop owner, that I discovered some interesting financial irregularities related to the house sale. Small towns ran on gossip. Within a week, everyone was talking. At the grocery store, I overheard two women discussing that Hamilton situation. Sounds like the new wife pulled something shady. At the bank, the teller asked how I was holding up during all this legal trouble. Vivian felt the shift. She made mistakes trying to control the narrative. She confronted Mrs. Patterson publicly at the farmer's market, demanding to know what she'd told me. Mrs. Patterson, bless her, just smiled and said, "The truth, Vivian. Always the truth." Vivian snapped. That house was Julia's shrine. Russell deserved to move on. People heard. They remembered. One of Mom's former book club members started a Facebook group, Justice for Julia Hamilton. It grew to 200 members in days. They shared memories of Mom, questioned the sale, supported my right to answers. Vivian tried to get the group taken down, but that only made things worse. Local newspapers caught wind of the story.
A reporter called me.
I politely declined comment, but suggested they investigate questionable property transfers involving family members and LLCs. The article ran the following Sunday. Estate questions raised in local property sale. Vivian was visibly nervous now. She'd stopped posting entirely. The errors were piling up, and everyone was watching. Kyle tried to defend his mother at a town hall meeting about property development. He stood up during public comments, ranting about how people should mind their own business, and how I was making up lies for attention. Malcolm had prepared me for this. I sat quietly in the back row, while Kyle dug his own grave. My mom and Russell had every right to sell that house, he shouted. Brooke wasn't even paying for it. She has no claim. An older man raised his hand. Wasn't there a trust?
Kyle faltered.
Well, yeah, but it's complicated. Legal stuff. Sounds like you don't understand it, the man continued. Maybe you shouldn't be speaking on it. Kyle's face flushed red. He made the fatal mistake. Whatever money was in that trust, Brooke doesn't deserve it anyway. She's just trying to cash in on her dead mom. The room went silent. Even people who'd been neutral gasped. You didn't speak ill of Julia Hamilton in this town. She'd volunteered at the hospital, organized food drives, taught Sunday school. The town worshipped her memory. Kyle realized his mistake too late. He tried backtracking, but the damage was done. By morning, the Facebook group had tripled. People who'd been on the fence now firmly supported me. Kyle's comment became a rallying cry, using Julia's memory for greed. The whispers turned to shouts. Would they fight back harder?
Probably.
But they were fighting uphill now. Vivian's weakness wasn't greed, it was vanity. She needed people to admire her, to see her as sophisticated and successful. I used that. I started attending the same social event she did, always dressed impeccably, always composed. I never confronted her directly. I just existed in her space, calm and confident. At a charity auction, she tried to outbid me on a donated painting. I let her win, then loudly congratulated her on supporting the community despite difficult times. Her smile tightened. Someone asked what I meant by difficult times. Oh, just legal matters, I said lightly. Nothing to worry about, I'm sure. Vivian contradicted herself at a garden club meeting, claiming she'd always loved that old house, when weeks earlier she'd called it a money pit. Someone pointed out the inconsistency. She laughed it off nervously. At another event, she mentioned how much Marcus had helped them through hard times financially. I happened to be standing nearby when someone asked, "Isn't Marcus the one who bought the house?" Vivian's face went pale. Well, yes, but that's separate. Sounds convenient, the woman murmured. My calculated calm was driving her crazy. She couldn't attack me publicly without looking cruel. She couldn't ignore me without looking guilty. Every social interaction became a chess game, and she was losing piece by piece. Her perfect image was cracking, and everyone could see it. I didn't need to be aggressive. I just needed to be present, poised, and patient. Dad pulled me aside after church one Sunday. He looked exhausted, older than his 56 years. Brooke, can we talk? We sat in his truck, rain pattering against the windshield. People are talking, he said quietly. About the house, about Vivian, about everything. I know, I said simply. He rubbed his face. I didn't realize how this would look. Vivian said it was a smart financial move. I trusted her. You trusted her more than you trusted me, I corrected gently. His silence confirmed it. Your mother's trust. I signed papers, but I didn't read everything carefully. Vivian handled most of it. She said it was fine.
It wasn't fine, Dad.
She used Mom's estate money for repairs, then sold the house to her brother below market value to hide assets. She violated the trust terms. She kept me in the dark on purpose. He stared through the windshield. I didn't know about the estate money. Would you have cared if you did? The question hung between us. Finally, he whispered, I miss your mother. After she died, I couldn't do anything right. Vivian seemed to have answers for everything. She had answers that benefited her. I said, not me, not Mom's legacy. He nodded slowly. I could see doubt forming, cracks in his loyalty to Vivian. At dinner that week, Aunt Melissa mentioned the Facebook group to Dad. He didn't defend Vivian. He just went quiet. The doubts were growing. Could they switch sides? Maybe. But I wasn't counting on it. I was counting on facts. Malcolm scheduled a mediation hearing for early June. By then, I'd organized everything into 3 binders: financial evidence, communication records, and witness statements. The financial evidence showed unauthorized use of Mom's estate funds, the undervalued sale, and Marcus's LLC structure. The communications included Vivian's emails, Kyle's social media posts, and recorded phone calls where she'd made incriminating statements to friends. The witness statements came from Thomas, Mrs. Patterson, and 6 other neighbors who'd observed suspicious behavior. I'd also planted seeds for Vivian's next move. Through a mutual friend, I let it slip that I was worried about the mediation and not sure I had enough proof. I wanted Vivian to feel confident, to make one more aggressive push. Overconfidence bred mistakes. That Friday, I met with Malcolm and Patricia Morrison to review strategy. If they're smart, they'll settle, Malcolm said. Returning the house or fair market compensation plus damages. And if they're not smart? I asked. Then we go to court, Patricia said with a thin smile. And we destroy them. I spent that weekend at Mom's grave, telling her everything. I'm doing this right, I whispered, tracing her name on the headstone. Patient, smart, just like you taught me. The storm was ready. Thunder rumbled in the distance, both literal and metaphorical. I just needed Vivian to make one final mistake. And I had a feeling she would. Patience. Strategy.
Victory.
The pieces were all in position. The mediation hearing approached, and Vivian made her move exactly as I'd predicted. She organized a family intervention at Dad's apartment, inviting his siblings and her friends. Brooke needs to understand reality, she announced. This vendetta is tearing the family apart. I arrived prepared. Vivian started with sympathy. We know you miss your mother, but holding on to that house won't bring her back. I said nothing, letting her continue. Your father and I made a financial decision. Adults do that. We're trying to be patient with your immaturity, but this legal nonsense has to stop. She expected tears, arguments, defensiveness. Instead, I pulled out my tablet. Let's talk about adult decisions, I said calmly. I showed them the emails between Vivian and Marcus. Their faces changed as they read her words. Julia set up that trust to spite me. I showed them Thomas's records of estate fund misuse. Aunt Melissa's mouth fell open. I showed them the timeline. How Vivian had started planning the sale 6 months before Mom's death anniversary. How every step was calculated to exclude me. This wasn't a financial decision, I said quietly. This was theft. Premeditated, documented, witness theft. Uncle Frank looked at Vivian. Is this true? She sputtered. Those emails are out of context. We were just trying to. Every excuse made it worse. She was unaware she'd been playing into my hands the entire time. Would she realize too late? She was realizing now, watching her support system crumble as they read the evidence. The week before the official mediation, everything aligned. Thomas contacted 3 other former employees who'd witnessed Vivian's mishandling of estate matters. They agreed to provide statements. Mrs. Patterson connected me with a clerk from the county recorder's office who'd noticed the unusual sale terms and documented his concerns. The evidence was overwhelming. Malcolm called with news. The mediator reviewed preliminary documents. He's already leaning in your favor. This is rare. Usually they stay neutral until the hearing. I met with each ally privately, ensuring everyone understood their role. Thomas would testify about estate fund misuse. Mrs. Patterson would present the emails. The county clerk would explain the irregular sale structure. My role was simple. Stay calm, present facts, let the evidence speak. Dad called Tuesday night. Vivian's lawyer wants to settle. She's offering to split the difference on the house value. 50%. I asked. 50%, he confirmed, voice hollow. No, I said firmly. Full restitution or court.
He didn't argue.
That Friday, Vivian called me herself, the first direct contact in weeks. We can work this out, Brooke. Families shouldn't fight like this. You made us enemies when you stole my inheritance, I replied, voice steady. I didn't steal anything. Your father signed papers you prepared, using Mom's money you controlled, selling to your brother in a fraudulent transaction.
Those are facts, Vivian.
Not family drama. Silence. Then, you've changed. Yes, I agreed. I learned from the best. The mediation hearing room was small and airless. Malcolm sat beside me, binders stacked neatly. Vivian arrived with her lawyer, a nervous-looking man who kept adjusting his tie. Dad came alone, sitting away from both of us. The mediator, Judge Peterson, was retired but still commanded respect. He reviewed the preliminary evidence silently while we waited. When he finally spoke, his voice was grave. Mrs. Hamilton Burke, I've read the communications between yourself and your brother. Would you like to explain this email where you discuss hiding assets? Vivian's lawyer interjected. My client was speaking hypothetically. It's dated 2 months before the sale. Peterson interrupted. With specific dollar amounts matching the actual transaction. That's not hypothetical. Malcolm presented Thomas's records. Each receipt, each withdrawal, each repair paid from Mom's estate funds instead of family accounts. Peterson's expression darkened. Then came the trust violation, the required written notice I'd never received. The undervalued sale to family. The cosign loan that maintained financial control. Each piece built on the last, creating an undeniable pattern. Vivian tried interrupting. This is a misunderstanding. My stepdaughter is emotional. Your stepdaughter has documentation, Peterson said coldly. You have excuses. Those aren't equivalent. Her lawyer whispered urgently to her. She shook her head stubbornly. Peterson sighed. This will go to court if you don't settle today. I strongly recommend settlement, Mrs. Burke. You will lose in court. The dominoes were falling. Could she recover?
No. It was unstoppable now.
That Saturday, Dad hosted a family barbecue, an attempt at normalcy that everyone knew was doomed. I attended with Malcolm's advice ringing in my ears. Let them implode on their own. Vivian held court near the grill, trying to maintain her social standing. But the evidence from mediation had leaked. Small towns couldn't keep secrets. Everyone knew. When Aunt Melissa asked about the house situation, Vivian's practiced smile cracked. It's complicated. Brooke is being unreasonable. Unreasonable. Uncle Frank set down his drink. She has emails showing you plan to steal her inheritance. I didn't steal anything. Vivian's voice rose. That house was Russell's to do with as he pleased. Actually, I said quietly from my chair, the trust gave him temporary control. Mom intended it for me. You knew that. You planned around it. Vivian whirled on me. Your mother wasn't a saint, Brooke. She was controlling and manipulative. The backyard went silent. Dad's face drained of color. Don't, he whispered. But Vivian couldn't stop. Years of resentment poured out. How Mom had made her feel like an outsider. How the trust was a final insult. How she'd earned the right to make decisions about the house. Every word condemned her. Kyle tried pulling her aside, but she jerked away. I'm tired of pretending. That house should have been mine. I was Russell's wife. You were his second wife, Aunt Melissa said coldly. Julia was his partner for 20 years. The judgment was swift and total. People began leaving. Vivian stood alone by the grill, finally realizing what she'd done. My calm demeanor made her outburst look even worse. I hadn't needed to attack her. She'd destroyed herself. Just when victory seemed certain, Vivian made a last, desperate move. She filed a countersuit claiming emotional distress and defamation. Brooke has slandered me throughout this town. Her complaint read, her baseless accusations have damaged my reputation and mental health. Malcolm called me immediately. It's a distraction tactic. She can't win, but she can delay and increase costs. I'd anticipated this. While organizing evidence, I'd kept records of every statement I'd made, all factual, all supported by documentation. I'd never called her names or made unverifiable claims. I'd simply told the truth. I have recordings, I told Malcolm, of every conversation, every public statement. I've been careful. We filed a motion to dismiss based on truth as absolute defense. But I added something extra, a cross-claim for intentional infliction of emotional distress, citing her theft of my inheritance, her manipulation of Dad, and her public attacks on Mom's character. The countersuit backfired spectacularly. The judge called it frivolous and vexatious, warning Vivian's lawyer about filing bad faith motions. Local newspapers covered it. Stepdaughter fights back against frivolous lawsuit. Public opinion, already turned against Vivian, became hostile. Even people who'd tried staying neutral now supported me. Dad called that night. She's talking about bankruptcy. Marcus is backing out of the loan. Everything's falling apart. Good, I said simply. He sighed. I'm sorry, Brooke. For all of it. I know, Dad. The unexpected twist had backfired. Vivian had tried one last maneuver, and I'd countered it in a way that shocked everyone, including her. How would she handle total exposure? Badly, apparently. Very badly. Dad asked to meet me at Mom's grave. I found him sitting on the bench nearby, head in his hands. I should have protected you, he said. From Vivian, from all of this. Your mother trusted me to take care of you, and I failed. I sat beside him. You chose Vivian's comfort over my inheritance. I chose the easy path, he corrected. Vivian made everything seem simple. Sign this, approve that. I was tired grieving. I let her control things I should have questioned. He pulled out a folder. I've been going through old paperwork. There's more loans Vivian took out in my name, credit cards I never saw statements for. She's been bleeding me dry for years. Why are you telling me this? Because you need to know I'm stepping away from her schemes. I've contacted a divorce attorney. Whatever happens with the house, I won't defend her anymore. The emotional betrayal in his voice was genuine. He'd finally seen what I'd seen all along. Vivian had used him, manipulated his grief, and turned him against his own daughter. The house comes back to me, I said quietly. One way or another. That's not negotiable. I know, he said. And it should. Your mother wanted you to have it. I should have honored that. We sat in silence, watching the sunset. This wasn't full reconciliation. That would take years, if it ever came. But it was acknowledgement. Dad had chosen a side, and for the first time since Mom's death, he'd chosen mine. I gained the moral victory before the legal one was even finalized. Sometimes that was more important. The court ruling came on a Thursday in late July. Judge Morrison, no relation to Patricia, delivered her decision with clinical precision. The evidence demonstrates systematic fraud, misuse of estate funds, and intentional violation of trust terms. The sale to Westfield Properties LLC is hereby voided. The property shall be transferred to Brooke Hamilton within 30 days. She continued. Additionally, Russell and Vivian Burke are ordered to pay restitution of $73,000, representing estate funds misused plus interest. Legal fees of $18,000 shall be borne by the defendants. Vivian's face went white. Kyle stormed out of the courtroom. Dad sat motionless, staring at his hands. Malcolm squeezed my shoulder. Congratulations. Outside, reporters waited. I gave a brief statement. This was never about revenge. It was about honoring my mother's wishes and protecting what she built. Justice has been served. The legal victory felt surreal. The house I'd thought lost forever was mine again. But Judge Morrison had added one more provision. Mrs. Burke, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney. The evidence suggests criminal fraud that warrants investigation. Vivian stumbled as she left, her lawyer supporting her. The poetic justice was almost too perfect. She tried to steal my inheritance and ended up facing criminal charges. That evening, I stood outside 847 Maple Street again. The current residents had been notified and would vacate within weeks. The sold sign was gone. Soon, my name would be on the deed. Could there be one last backlash?
Possibly.
But I'd won where it mattered. In court, in truth, in justice. Whatever came next, I'd face it from a position of strength. Vivian's final attempt at control came through Kyle. He showed up at my apartment 2 weeks after the ruling, trying to negotiate. Mom's willing to drop the criminal investigation stuff if you reduce the restitution amount. I almost laughed. Your mother doesn't control criminal investigations. The district attorney does. Come on, Brooke. You got the house. Isn't that enough? I got what was always mine, I corrected. Plus compensation for what she stole. That's not generosity. That's justice. He tried a different approach. We're family. You're really going to let Mom go to jail? I'm not sending her to jail. Her choices are. Kyle left angry, making vague threats that went nowhere. 3 days later, Marcus's LLC collapsed. The IRS had started auditing his properties after the court case revealed the suspicious sales structure. Vivian's assets were frozen pending the criminal investigation. She tried one last social media post. Sometimes fighting for your rights means standing alone against vindictive people. Stay strong. Truth prevails. The comments destroyed her. You stole from your stepdaughter, one person wrote. You're getting what you deserve, said another. Even her friends had abandoned her. She deleted the post within hours, then deleted her entire account. Her pride, her arrogance, her miscalculations had become her complete undoing. She'd lost her social standing, her financial security, her marriage. Dad filed for divorce in August, and potentially her freedom. She was speechless now because there was nothing left to say. Every lie had been exposed. Every scheme had been revealed. She'd gambled on my silence and lost everything. I got the keys to 847 Maple Street on September 1st. The house was empty, echoing with memories as I walked through each room. The kitchen where Mom taught me to bake. The living room where we'd watched movies on rainy afternoons. The bedroom where she'd read stories until I fell asleep. The new owners had painted some walls, changed some fixtures, but the bones were the same. The heart was the same. Thomas helped me move furniture from storage, pieces Mom had loved that Dad and Vivian had discarded. My old bed frame. The dining table. Her piano. As we positioned the piano in the living room, Thomas smiled. Your mother would be proud, Miss Brooke. Not just for winning, but for how you won. With grace. I found a box in the attic the new owners had missed. Inside were Mom's journals, photo albums, and a letter addressed to me. My darling Brooke, if you're reading this, I'm gone, but you're not alone. The house is yours because you're my legacy. Don't let anyone take what we built together. Fight for it. Fight smart. Fight fair. But fight. Love always, Mom. I sat on the floor and cried. Not from sadness, but release. The weight I'd carried for months finally lifted. That evening, I sat on the front porch, watching fireflies dance across the yard. The house felt alive again, filled with purpose. Neighbors stopped by with welcome back casseroles. Mrs. Patterson brought flowers. Even Dad visited briefly, apologizing again. The emotional closure hit me in waves. Grief for what was lost, gratitude for what was restored, and certainty that I'd done right by Mom. This was more than reclaiming property. It was reclaiming myself. 3 months later, I hosted a Thanksgiving dinner at the house. Patricia Morrison came, along with Thomas and his wife, Mrs. Patterson, Dad, Aunt Melissa, Uncle Frank, and a few close friends. The dining table Mom loved was set with her good china. Candles flickered in the windows. The house felt like home again. We went around the table sharing gratitude. "I'm grateful for second chances," Dad said quietly, looking at me. "I'm grateful for people who fight for what's right," Patricia added. When my turn came, I looked around at these people who'd stood with me. I'm grateful for patience, for justice, and for understanding that integrity matters more than comfort.
Mom taught me that.
Thomas raised his glass. To Julia Hamilton, and to her daughter, who honored her memory the right way. We toasted, and I felt Mom's presence in that moment. In the candlelight, the laughter, the warmth. The legal victory had restored the house. But the real triumph was deeper. I'd learned that betrayal doesn't define you. Response does. I'd been patient when they expected rage. Strategic when they expected chaos. Dignified when they expected desperation. And I'd won on my own terms, not through revenge, but through truth. Vivian faced trial in January. Kyle moved out of state. Marcus's business was under investigation. Their consequences were their own making. As for me, I had my house, my integrity, and my mother's legacy. I'd proven that even when people steal your past, they can't take your future, not if you fight smart. That's the lesson Vivian learned too late. Underestimate quiet people at your peril. Sometimes the one who speaks softest carries the biggest weapon. Mine was truth. And truth always wins.